We're here in Accra, Ghana, and I've got Nana with me. Nana, can you tell us a bit about yourself?
Yes, so my name is Darkoa Sekyiamah. I am Ghanaian. I live and work in Ghana. I do a number of things. I work for women's rights organizations. I co-own a fashion label called Maxi with my sister. I'm also a writer and one of the co-founders of the very popular blog Adventures from the Bedrooms of African Women. My blog in particular deals with the intersections between African women's lives, issues of sex, sexuality and sexual rights.
Okay, now Ghana. Ghana is a model for West Africa. I mean, in Nigeria, we all compare ourselves. I go to Ghana, everything seems to be rosy. But I've been here 2 days. Viewers can hear in the background that's a generator going off. And in my hotel, we've been running on generator for about 24 to 48 hours. That's a surprise for someone coming from Nigeria.
Yes, I mean, in Ghana, we've always had an energy crisis. But in recent times, the crisis seems to have come to a head where it's extremely bad. So we now have a system where our energy and our lights go off for 24 hours at a stretch, which is really, really unbearable. And of course, for people in Ghana, we've always been slightly amused when other people have seen us as, in a sense, the model country, because those of us who live here feel it, right? And we know it's far from a model country. We know we're seen as a model country because people are comparing us to countries which are in a worse state. Personally, I don't see why I should be compared to a bad performing country. I want to be compared to the top performing countries in the world. And I think Ghana is far from being a model country. We have a long way to go. Especially our politicians, our governments needs to really step up their game, because we really feel like they don't. At least I myself, and when I speak to my friends and colleagues, you know, ordinary people are really struggling. And even those of us who are in the middle class, who are supposed to be the more privileged ones, we struggle. How much more the average man or woman on the street?
Well, the West will say, look, Ghana has had a stable democracy, and you've elected and re-elected government, an opposition party won an election, and that is something to be proud of.
Well, for me, that's a minimum standard. Why is that something to be proud of? What do you expect us to do? For me, that is the minimum standard. We elect governments into power. So when the governments come into power, what do they need to do? They need to run the country properly. A health crisis, it's a challenge. If you ever have an accident on the road, God forbid, you know, you would depend upon passers-by to put you in a taxi, to take you to hospitals. I know people who have lost their lives because they have had to go to hospital after hospital, and eventually every hospital turns them away because they've got no beds. I've had relatives in our major teaching hospitals who are really getting bad to non-existent service. We've had medical professionals, nurses in those hospitals tell us they're not being paid. How do you expect them to be motivated? For me, this is not a country that's being run well. This is a very ineffectively run country. I think what makes Ghana different from other countries is the temperament of the citizens. We are very, very laid back people. You know, we say things like "Fama Nyame," which means give it to God. We hope for a better day, so we don't agitate. And I actually think we need more of a movement of people holding our political leaders to account.
Yeah, I was watching one of the breakfast show today, and the level of the conversation was quite clear. I mean, they said hospital will start charging 5 cedis to 6 cedis on every patient that come in, and heated debate by contributors. And also the taxi driver that brought me here was talking about how bad things are. But what has changed? I mean, from the Rawlings revolution, so to say, that we in Nigeria clamor for to this process where everyone seems to be disappointed?
Well, I mean, the Rawlings revolution wasn't great for the country either. You know, I think from the outside world, people think, oh yes, Rawlings came into power and everything got better. No, it didn't. Times were really, really tough then. That's when a lot of people left the country. It was only in the 90s that people started to come back to the country after the regime changed. I think we've had issues for a long time. And I think now it's even more stark than ever, because a couple of years ago we looked like we were really going to improve. A lot of people in the diaspora moved back home, especially during the financial crisis in the West. So we do seem to have taken a turn, you know, backwards, and not for the better things in life, but really for the worst.
So would you like to make comments about the current leadership in Ghana? I mean, is it the NDC?
Yes.
That's the ruling party.
Yes.
And the president seems to be getting unpopular by the day.
The president is getting unpopular by the day, but for me, it's not really so much about that president or that government. Really, it's that Ghanaians in general, we are disillusioned with politics. We are disillusioned with our politicians. I'm very active on social media, and I see the conversations. People believe that it really doesn't make a difference who's in power. Most of the governments seem to be in it for their own selfish reason, and we really need our political leaders across both political parties to stand up and to actually do what they say they're going to do. They make all sorts of promises at election time and nothing materializes, and we see a pattern where, you know, a year or two before elections, nothing is happening, and then a few months to elections, suddenly there's improvement in the system. So very much, we are all very much aware that, you know, in 2015, our energy crisis will suddenly appear to be resolved because there's an election coming up. And, you know, we're not idiots. We can see through this. So we need all politicians to really stand up and do their work.
On gender now, how's female participation in politics? Are there enough women and enough young people taking part in the political process?
We don't have enough women being voted into political office. Ghana is unfortunately like several other African countries where people see leadership and being in the public service as really a responsibility for the men. And also, of course, we also have this godfather syndrome of politics where it costs a lot of money to run for office. A lot of women do not have access to that. I have interviewed women politicians who have told me, for example, that, you know, I had to decide to step back because you are totally reliant on these godfathers who expect you to give them favors in return. You know, you literally have to prostitute yourself for the money, and a lot of women do not want to pursue politics for that reason. And of course, like we all know, politics is very much a dirty game. You also see that women politicians or women aspiring politicians get bashed on a personal basis. People challenge their lifestyle, people challenge their sexuality, people cast all sorts of aspersions on their reputation. Men don't face those same sort of challenges. So it's really, really difficult because, first of all, as women, we are brought up to think our lives should be in the home. So you're already being brave by stepping into the public, and then all of this, you know, is thrown upon you. A lot of people cannot deal with this, and really, why should people deal with this? So we need to look at really revolutionarizing the whole political system. So it's fair and open to women, it's fair and open to poor men, you know, because really right now it's for the rich men, basically.
Now, population of about 25 million. People are coming into Ghana. You can't deny that. There are about 200,000 plus Nigerian students in Ghana relying on the educational sector. What is it about Ghana that people find that even despite all these challenges, people still want to come into Ghana? They want to come and get education. They want to live peacefully. Security seems to be okay as far as they are concerned compared to where they're coming from. What is special about Ghana and Ghanaians?
I think it's really a temperament. You know, I think very much we're people that do not like conflict. On the surface and overall, we shy away from conflict. So as a country, there's a lot more freedom. We're not overly militarized like a lot of countries are. So I think that also reduces the chances for conflict. And also, really, it's in comparison to other countries that are really, really not doing that well. So, I mean, I love Nigeria, but I don't really feel comfortable when I'm in Lagos, for example. People tell me, oh, you can't walk on the street. But in Ghana, I come home whenever I want to. And, you know, it's completely fine. But when I'm in Lagos, I can't do that. So I think this is why you have, you know, lots of people, especially Nigerians, liking to live in Ghana because, of course, Ghana is very close to Nigeria. There are lots of similarities, but they love the differences. You know, they love the fact that they feel comfortable, they feel safe. We don't have the current terrorist threats that unfortunately prevails in Nigeria right now.
Do you see conflicts emerging? Because one of the experience we have, like for someone living in the UK, is after a while, waves of migrants come in, there's tension within the local populace, and you would have people getting uncomfortable that these guys are coming to take our jobs. Or do you see that happening in Ghana?
At this point in time, I don't see that happening. But I think as people become more desperate, as people feel they need to struggle for what they have, that's when people become resentful of people that they perceive as foreigners. And this is why it's even more important that our governments do the right thing and make sure that everybody in Ghana can have access to a basic standard of living. I personally get very distressed when I go out on the streets because at every traffic light, there are loads of people begging. I mean, we have a social social services department, which seems totally ineffective. What is going on? You know, we can't live in a country where you have such a huge disparity between those who have and those who do not have.
Now tell us, the Ghanaians in diaspora and Ghanaians at home, what's the conversation like when you speak to Ghanaians that are outside Ghana? Do they have an understanding of what is happening in Ghana?
Thanks to social media, Ghanaians in the diaspora definitely have an understanding of what's happening in the country. There's some times where I feel like Ghanaians in the diaspora have even more of an understanding because they are listening to all the radio shows that are being live streamed, they're reading all the blogs that are being written by Ghanaians who are based here. I think a couple of years ago, a lot of Ghanaians in the diaspora were looking to come home. What I see now is a couple of people who came home are actually looking to leave now, especially because of this latest energy crisis. People are frustrated. It's affecting businesses. It's affecting people's state of being, people's wellness. So, you know, that excitement that people felt about returning home no longer exists. And those who are here actually want to leave. Even people who have never been abroad, they are desperate to leave. I have a shop assistant. Her dream is to leave the country, you know, and that's unfortunately is the dream of a lot of ordinary Ghanaians because they think the world out there is better. And we may be better on a superficial level, but it's not if you don't originate from those countries.
When I told a friend of mine I was coming to have this conversation with you, she insisted I must ask you about sexual violence in Ghana. Is it on the rise? Rape in Nigeria is something that it's a big issue. Is it the same with Ghana? Sexual violence, discrimination, women? Is it something that you're concerned about, and is it being looked into by the government?
Sexual violence is definitely something I'm concerned about. I feel like this is something that has always been in good Ghanaian society, especially the sexual abuse that children face. That's something that we don't deal with as a society. It's always kept, you know, within the family because nobody wants the family to be disgraced, because inevitably whenever there's violence at home, it's usually from somebody within the home, from a family member, an uncle, or somebody who works for somebody in the home. So that's just something that I feel we've always had in our society. In more recent times, we've had a prominent case where one of our media personalities has been accused of being raped, and all sorts of other stories are coming out. So it's brought it into the public limelight. And again, what we saw was, I think, quite despicable, where the woman who survived this violent attack, you know, was being shamed in the media and being shamed by individuals. And now we have a situation where she has had to withdraw her statement, and she said it is because of, in a sense, being vilified. And I mean, this is totally abhorrent. What I'm really pleased about with this particular case is that the state has decided to take the case on and pursue it because they believe that there's evidence to show that the man who has been accused is guilty. So I'm extremely happy about that. It's not about the man for me. It's about people need to realize that this kind of behavior is not something we should tolerate, and a line has to be drawn under it. And I feel like in Ghana, people never, and it's not just Ghana, I think it's a global phenomenon. People never take the sexual assault and harassment and the sexual violence that women face seriously. Rape is the only crime where people start asking, is it true? If I came to you and I said I've been burgled, nobody would say, oh, what did you do to be burgled? As soon as you're raped, what were you wearing? You know, they're always looking for a perfect victim of rape. You know, this is somebody who ideally should have been a virgin, you know, should definitely not be like me and have a blog about sex and sexuality, should not have a lot of sexual partners. It's irrelevant. You can even be a sex worker and be raped. It's about a crime, and you know, I think that's where the line should be drawn.
Nana, thanks so much for having this interview with us, and good luck with your project.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.